Are you ready? Are we ready? Is everybody here? Put your phones on the side, we'll have a good night.
Yeah.
This is Peter Wilson.
I think I've put mine on a silent. Just push it up. Hello. There we go. Alright then. Last time I was here, well anyway, with Maureen, we did an explanation on, yeah, like going back in history and sort of like, you know, how things started and how we got into the position that we're in. Kind of like a big history lesson. So this time just I want to make a difference, so I'm going to like leap forward and be more modern and sort of like talk about what's happening now. Well, you know, from sort of like, you know, the 1900s onwards rather than going back to, you know, the 12 and 1300s, okay? So the last time that I was at an event, doing an event, was I went to Birmingham. Can't even remember when it was now. I think it was the beginning of this month, and someone tried to steal my car. Totally smashed it to pieces. You know, they weren't very bloody good at it, I tell you. Yeah, nearly ripped the whole door off, so it wouldn't have been much good of them if they'd have took it anyway. Then smashed all the windows just to be funny. And we'll have this here. They just ripped all this up, you know. It was in the back of the car. And then there was, like, you know, when you put like little bits of change in your, like, you know, glove compartment or stuff. They even like picked up about £5 or whatever in car and just threw it around on the car park floor. So it's so annoying. So I'm in the van now, still haven't got it back. And I think they just got a message come through, said that they've got staffing shortages, and then car part shortages as well because of a war. so it's going to be like a while before they can even fix the thing. Isn't that madness? You know, but anyway. So what I'll do is I'll just go over the talk anyway. There's quite a lot of different things in. It's covering mainly about like the fraud that's actually being portrayed on us, and how they've actually put us into this scam. And obviously any questions at the end, feel free. And then we're going to go over a little bit like about like the financial fraud that they've actually got going on as well. How it ties together. Everything is about the name, as we're going to see, okay? I'll read this bit out to you. Matthew 6:24. No man can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon, meaning like, you know, greed on there. Okay? So a lot of this is talking about, because you've got two things. You have yourself, which is the man or woman, and also the person. Alright? You are not a person, but you have a person. We have to get to grips with that and understand that, because this is what it all is. It's a name game. Alright? So everything that has befallen the US, it started and was instigated by the Crown Corporation. What I mean by that is like a lot of what the references that we do, and probably I'm going to go off on one maybe because all I do is I make notes, but like it'll give me an idea of what I actually want to say. And a lot of the references we'll make are about the USA, because it got started in the city of London to push out to the USA, because that annoys them like mad. The United States annoys them because that's where everybody tried to run away to try to escape the clutches of the Crown Corporation. So a lot of the times you hear it, they were fighting either King James, going back to like, you know, like Jamestown, that type of thing, when they went over to the United States, or King George when they actually had the war. Well, it wasn't really them, it was all the Crown Corporation. Okay, so the same thing as the British Empire. It's not the British Empire, it was the Crown Corporation Empire, just hidden in the guise of Britain. So The Crown Corporation, this is the weird thing, it's an unincorporated corporation. Okay, as in, say for instance, you had a limited company. They are not limited. Why? Because they are private. Everything that they do is private, just the same as the Bar Association. So the British Accredited Registry for your barristers and your solicitors and all of that, again, it is private. So everything that they do is held in the private. We can't be part of it. So a lot of what we're trying to do is teach people how to actually become private themselves, how to actually step out of the system, and then even set up what we call like a private members association rather than having a business. Okay, we need to really start bringing everything back into the privacy, or into the private, and reinstalling our privacy, which we have given away so easily, all right, over the last 20, 30 years. So slavery itself, when we look at it, it was abolished in 1833, or it was supposed to have been abolished in 1833. But what was abolished was the actual advertising of it. Because we're still all in the slave system, they've just been able to actually disguise it very, very cleverly. Alright? So what we do is, well, you can only live in servitude if you volunteer to actually go into servitude. So in other words, they can't go out and actually force you to do it. Now, you have to volunteer to do it. So they have to be clever in their words and in their actions to make you volunteer. Alright? So a lot of people don't realise they're volunteering, literally volunteering themselves into slavery. So how do they actually do that? Well, it's all done through the birth registration. Now, we have to sort of like really look into it though, because it's not as if you're actually registering yourself. Okay, this is where the little tricks and everything come into it. You'll know obviously all about like the legalese and all the words that they use and trying to actually trick you into thinking they're talking about something else. So whenever I write it, I always like to write it down as the birth registration, BE, rather than the BI, because everything is to do with water, everything is to do with shipping. It's all about the maritime law, all right? You'll know that anyway. So when we're saying like the births, we think of it being your birthday, all right? It should be a born day. And then, but when you do it, you put it in there with your birthday card is with an I. But in reality, when they're saying it, all right, it's with an E. Everything is all witchcraft, all right? It's all words. And a little bit later on, I think I've got it on there, you know, I'll show you a few other words as well. It doesn't matter if you believe it or anything like that, but they believe it 100%. Okay, so when they're doing all of their rituals and they're doing all of their symbology and using all of their words, they believe it 100%, and they are putting this witchcraft out there and using this demonology and everything on you. You don't have to believe it. They definitely believe it all the time. Alright, so you've got the Births and Deaths Registration Act 1953. They were doing this before 1953. This is the newest version that they've actually got on it. So what we'll have to look at is the actual way that it's written. Okay, so the birth of every child born in England and Wales shall be registered. The birth of every child born in England and Wales shall be registered. But not the child. Alright? Did you get that? This is an event. So, a lot of people actually think that they've given themselves up, alright, or they've given up their children. And a lot of times when you look at it, it can look like that. But if you look at the actual act, this is a trick, this is a spell. Again, the birth of every child born in England and Wales shall be registered. It doesn't actually say, right, that the child is getting registered, only the event of the birth, only them being born, okay, not the actual living being. They're not registered, so they're still free, okay? Right, so you do not register your sons and daughters. You only register the event. That is a historical fact. That's something that's happened. Okay? So it's already happened. So a lot of people, it is when they say, is that your birth certificate? And they say, well, yes. Well, how do you know? Were you there? Right? Can you remember being there? Right? It's a historical fact. something that's already happened. So, usually what you get given is 42 days to actually go down to the office and do this form. So, the name on the registration is not you, and it's not your name, okay? The name by which it was registered. That is the wording of the act. This is what you have to check out, the actual acts, and read the acts and statutes. So on the first part, when it was saying the actual birth is getting registered, it's not saying the kid, right? And then it's the name by which it was registered. Again, that's what's getting registered. The name is getting registered, not the living being. Okay? So, but 99.9% of people, even that are like, you know, how would you describe, on our side, right? They still think, oh, well, no, we're registered, you know, we've given up, we are slaves because of that, but you're not. Still free, okay? I mean, I could describe it still sometimes because I don't want to get it into people's minds of what's going on, but the trickery of it is the event is being registered, the piece of paper is being registered, not the living being registered. So it's still freedom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so like I'm saying, the key phrases here, registration of the birth and the name by which it was registered. So it's not the child, okay, that is named, but the actual event of the birth. That's all it is. So, you know, they're still actually tricking us to actually saying that we are being registered, and everybody even states themselves, yeah, I'm registered, I have a birth certificate, I'm registered with the government. You are not. The only thing that's registered is an event that happened and the actual name of something that was on the piece of paper. And it's not you or your name. Alright? Just make sure. So I keep going way ahead of myself. But, so the thing is, on the name thing, well, I'll just go over it. Look, so when a clown, okay, asks for your name, right, the most accurate answer is, the name of the event of my birth is my given name. Okay? Alright? Peter, that is mine. But Wilson is the name of the event. Right? And that is not a name, it is a thing. That would confuse him, wouldn't it? But, you know, because they're not very clever. You know, I've had to be dealing with these the last couple of weeks. Oh my God. You know, it beggars belief when you're dealing with these people, the clowns in costumes. You know, are they actually that stupid, or are they just playing at being ignorant? You know, they hate it when you tell them the law. Or it's not the law, but they hate it when you tell them what the acts and statutes are, and then tell them the case law that they're actually going against that's going to get them prosecuted. It can get quite violent. Alright? But this is the things, right? Okay, so the name of the event of my birth is my given name. Peter, that's mine. But Wilson is the name of the event, right? And it's not a name, it is a thing. So the birth certificate, have you ever seen anybody going into the court and they actually hand them over the birth certificate? Alright? It doesn't really work that well, but in reality they are telling the truth, because this is the actual event. It's that piece of paper. It is not you and can never be you. Not even in their world. They're just trying to trick you. They know this. Okay? Alright? So, now, what they do is they're going to convert the birth certificate. Okay? It's a certified copy of an entry. I know I've seen like a lot of different birth certificates. Mine was an older one and it had 10 boxes. It's the really long ones. But this is all it says. It says a certified copy of an entry. It's not even the real certificate. Alright? So what they're doing is they're changing the certificate, changing the birth itself from being a reality of a being, right, born to an event on paper. It is a 2D legal fiction persona. Okay? That's what they're changing it to, a 2D legal fiction persona. So the persona, which is what you would have if you were in a play, if you were doing an act in a play. Okay, it comes from ancient Rome and Greece. It actually means mask wearer. funnily enough. Okay, the persona, the word itself. So what they used to do, right, when they were playing or doing these acts, you know, they would have the actors, they would have a mask on, so they wouldn't be them. And they were having to, what they'd usually do, if it was a famous person that they're acting out, they would have a picture of the person that would be the mask. But when you were wearing the masks, they couldn't be heard properly, so they would have this, I don't know what you would call it, but something coming out of the mouth like a megaphone, but a mini one, so they could project the voice. So they would have these masks on. That's what the persona means, mask wearer. So a person. A person is someone who wears a mask. Isn't that weird? It's very symbolic though, isn't it? So it comes back, you know, like on the Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu, what was it, 1911 or something like that, whatever it was? Something like that. And they were making them wear masks then as well. And they were sending big signs then, it says wear a mask or go to jail. You know? And most of the people that died were the ones that were actually wearing the masks through respiratory diseases. It's like you couldn't make it up, could you? It's like, what, have you got no imagination? Like you just got to keep repeating the same stuff all the time. But yeah, so that's where the word persona or person comes from. So when you're hearing it about the legal fiction, right, you hear me talking about the legal fiction a lot, that is the full capitalised name on the legal fiction. There's more than one version of it as well. Should maybe have wrote that down. Alright? So on your legal fiction, on the name, there's 3 versions that you'll see with it. If you've ever got a council tax bill through, or a tax bill, or even on your passport, you will have your capitis maximus. That is, every single letter will be capital, all the way through. Okay? Nowhere in the English language can you have full capitals written on. Right? So I didn't go to school that much, but when I went, I know for a fact that you couldn't write like that. You had to have it, if you were starting a sentence, it would have a capital letter, and the rest of them, unless it was a name, would be lowercase. Okay? So it's an acronym. Alright? Like bog off, buy one get one free. So when you're writing in full capitals, it can only be an acronym. So it means nothing, it does not make sense. It's completely illogical. So that's capitis maximus, that means all of them, everything is written in full capitals. Then you have capitis medius. Now on capitis medius, what they'd probably have, if it was me, they would probably have a capital P for Peter, and then Wilson would all be written in full. So it's only the lowercase part after the capital to begin. And then you would have capitis minimus, and this is why I'm saying this, because when you get bills coming through, right, they know this now and people are catching on, so they'll change it so that it'll either, a lot of the times it'll just have P, right, just the capital P, and then Wilson, which will be only the capital W. That's still a title. It's still your legal fiction. They're just trying to hide it more and more and more, because they know when you're putting capitis maximus, all capitals, that everybody's sussing it out now. Alright, so they're changing it as much as they can to try and trick you. Okay? Alright, but it's all a legal fiction. A person. So, we have a legal fiction, a person, or the name of the estate. Okay? Because that's all it is, that's all they're talking about, the estate. So you all have an estate. But in reality, if you've ever been, most people know of someone who has died, you have to go through probate or do anything like that. You can only have an estate and deal with an estate if you're dead. Alright? And you go through probate. You ever done that? I mean, not you dead, but, you know, being on there. So I've recently had to do this, and I had to go and file the probate and do all the paperwork and everything like that to handle the estate of the deceased. And what you're given, really, is an estate, straight away by that birth certificate. So in reality, you've got your birth certificate, but it's actually a death certificate. Alright, because what they've done is they've created this estate for you, even on birth. So that's the formation of the estate by giving you that birth certificate. Can you see that? You see what I mean? So it's very, very conniving, what they're doing. I should have took this top off before. Okay. Your pen kept running out. That's right. Okay, so we have the estate, your estate, but who owns it? And who is liable for it? Again, playing on words, liable. You ever deal with your council tax or any bills like that? Who is liable? Who is able to be lied to? Right? That's what that means. Who is liable? Alright? So, the birth certificate. Certificate. What is a certificate? It's a piece of paper establishing an ownership or a claim. Okay? So, all birth certificates in the Commonwealth are marked Crown copyright. Okay? So, who owns it then? And who is liable for it? What they're doing is they actually keep putting our full capital name on, saying that we are liable, able to be lied to, but in reality, who owns it is the ones that created it. Who owns it? Who creates it owns it, and it's the Crown copyright. So we'll have to go and get her to pay for it all, won't we? Before she dies. Or before they tell us she's been dead for years anyway. Alright? But that's what it is in reality. So the birth certificate, they're trying to take you or make you be responsible for it and pay all the bills, but they own it. It's actually got it written on it, Crown copyright property. Okay? Maximum law. All liability rests with the owner. We cannot own it. You cannot own your name. You try copywriting your full capital name. They own it, so next time, send the bills to Buckingham Palace. Alright? So, if we don't claim to own the estate, all the property of the estate is ours, then we can't have liability imposed upon us. Okay? That would be slavery. And that is forbidden by law. Alright? So, you see, a lot of people, what they do is that they get stuck with this idea of the name. And it's not like anybody's fault, because this is what's getting indoctrinated into you all the time. And the thing is the same with, like, everybody wants to own things. Like, they want to own their car, they want to own their house. But what you're doing is you're actually putting liabilities upon yourself, trying to claim the property to be yours, which is diving you into slavery. Alright? You should never have your name on anything. Anything, ever. So people keep ringing me and sending me messages all the time and saying, someone's just come and clamped my car. And I was, well, how did they know it was your car? Why are they touching your stuff? You know, it's like you'll not find my name on anything. Apart from the arms, maybe somewhere, but apart from that, nowhere else. It'll not be on any, I don't own a car, I don't own houses or anything like that, because everything is hidden in private. Okay, it's not hidden, but it's in private, it's in trusts. So nobody can say, well, we're going to sue you, I'm going to take everything you own. Yeah, fine. Shoes, maybe, that's about it. You know, but like you're not going to get anything else because it's all privately hidden in trust. I'm not going to try and claim anything else. You know, is it like, I like that saying that Klaus says, like, is, you know, own nothing and be happy. But I'd rather own nothing but control everything. Alright? Like the Rockefellers say, own nothing, control everything. So everything that you have, you know, should be in a private trust. And that's anything that is property, proper to I. So everyone says, like, well, what is property? So if you have young children, they are your property. Alright? Your DNA is your property. There's nobody could deny that. The DNA is your property. That can be put in a private trust. Why would it be in a private trust? Well, because then they couldn't change it or alter it or do anything to it or borrow it. You know, unless it was written permission by all trustees of the private trust, the same as your fingerprints. Alright, so we've done this, we know this. People that are getting taken away to, you know, rooms in hotels that didn't look very nice, owned by the Queen, and they were wanting, well, you're not getting released until we take your fingerprints or the DNA. Well, you can't have it because it's not mine to give. You can only get that once you get permission from all the trustees. And they get extremely angry, very aggressive, but there's nothing that they can actually do. And once you get to your 72 hours, and then they have to release you, or you can do your habeas corpus and get someone to come along and help you to get out as well. All right, but it's the same thing with everything. If you don't know your rights, you're not going to be able to get them. So you have to make sure that you start knowing your rights and things like that as well. Okay? All right. So here's the tricks that they're playing. Okay? And it's all about the name. All right? And it's the illusion by the magicians. It's all just an illusion. It's all just trickery. It's all just messing you around. Okay? So what they're doing is the clowns are going to ask you for your name, but you identify as a name on the birth certificate without stating the fact that you are a man or woman. Then they assume and presume that you agree to be an accessory piece of property. Okay? So what you have to do is, like, if anyone's going to ask, I've actually got a card and it just says Peter on it and that's it, a man. And I wouldn't be telling them my name anyway, but just for instance. So what you don't want to be is an accessory or property. Okay? And now they're always going to assume and presume. You'll notice that they do it all the time, because the thing is, when people are asking, all the time, how much do they know? I'm talking about the street level clowns, and they probably don't even know their own name, right? You're talking about pure ignorance, hand-picked, psychologically tested to be the lowest of the low. So, they're always going to be make assumptions and presumptions when they're actually dealing with you, okay? So, what we're talking about there is an accessory, all right? So, because you're an accessory, you just volunteered to be crown property, all right? How did you do that? Okay, it's called accessio cedit principali. Accessio cedit principali. That is an accessory attached to a principal, and it becomes the property of the owner of the principal. Okay? Principal is the name, or certificate owner of principal is crown. Accessory, right, is a man who made the voluntary attachment. So what you've done is, if you agree, all right, that you were actually that capitalized name, then they actually own you, because you are actually an accessory attached to the principal. So they actually own everything. So if you attach yourself to anything, they own anything because they own all the titles. Everything is a title. You never ever want to have a title. What is a title? Mr., Mrs., putting your capitalized name in. Parent, it's a title. You don't want to have a title, you're a mother or a father. The child, it's a title. It's not. It should be your sons and daughters. Okay? The crown owns all titles. Alright? And everything. Up to, if you were a defendant, if you're a defendant, that's a title. If you're a plaintiff, that's a title. Now, I'm not saying you should never ever take a title. You can take titles if you think it can be of a benefit to you at a certain period in your time. So we dip in and out of the private when we need to. But you can only do it when it's favouring you, and it's got to be on your terms. You've got to be careful how you're doing it. But when you're agreeing, by being the accessory, you're agreeing to be the birth certificate name, right? Then you are property of the crown. And they can do anything they want with you. If you tell them that you're that name, and then you are literally property. You're just a piece of property. You are not a living being, and they will do anything they want with you. Okay? Alright, so everything, well, it tells you everything that you have, including your body, your home, your labour, income, all belong to your master, if you've admitted to being that. Alright? So, what if you accept, right, this might be a bit harsh, but this is just the way it is, by taking a job, then you're accepting that they own you. Okay? So what you are allowed to keep is a benefit or privilege, but you have no rights. So what they mean is, once you actually go in to take your income, you can only have an income if you were a person. Alright? So you can only have an income if you're admitted to being a person, so you're now property. If you have a piece of property, then you can have an income. And then if you have an income, then they're allowed to tax it. Alright? And you get to keep some benefits of it or privileges, but you have no rights. There's no such thing as human rights. Alright? What is a human? What is hue? Hue is a colour. So all you're doing is you're saying I have human rights, you are saying you are the colour of man. You are not man. So when you talk about the law and you see you have the colour of law, that means fake law. The colourable money, right, it means fake money. That's all we have. We have fiat currency. It's not money, it's the colour of money. Alright, it's the same thing with man. If you're saying you're human, you're the colour of man, not man. So we have to be very careful on the things that we actually ask for and say. So all that ever actually given to us is the illusion of freedom. There's a fantastic video, I don't know what the name is, it's about like a slave plantation. It's like it's not a cartoon, but it's animated type of thing. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Something called like Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones or something like that. But it's the illusion of freedom, and this is what they do to us all the time. So, you know, they had Mr. Smith come onto the plantation and tell them that you're all going to be free now, all your slaves are all going to be free. But it's very dangerous out there, so if you actually go out of the plantation, you'll get killed. So don't go out of the plantation or someone will kill you, because they don't know they're free. You only know you're free in here. Alright? So stay in here, but you can live in your house for free, but you have to work for it. So you can get the food there, but you have to work for it. Now, every few years, we're also going to have an election to see who's going to be in charge of you, Mr. Jones or Mr. Smith. And it's all going to work totally fine as long as you stay here and work here. And you'll all have your home for free, and you'll be able to have your food for free. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Alright, the illusion of freedom. Okay, so what are the benefits? Okay, so like you get income, but your income is taxed. So your tax pays for the benefits of your fellow man, such as, this is what they tell us, like roads, schools, hospitals, but in reality we know that the tax, it only pays the interest to the bondholders. What does that mean, the bondholders? Well, the bondholders are the ones that actually create the fiat currency and give it to the governments, so-called, alright? And then they pass it down to us. This is the creation of what we call money, but it isn't money, is it? It's just fiat currency. So what happens is the bond holders, they actually take the bonds from the governments and they exchange it for fiat currency. So they introduce £1 million, say for instance, and they take a government bond. But it's fiat currency which is given at interest to the central banks, to a private bank. So the government literally borrow money all the time. They borrow it from the central bank, the bondholders, and it is immediately being like collecting, accruing interest. So the tax that we all pay only goes to pay the interest. But and it is a loan. The central banks, which is private limited companies, all owned by the Rothschild families, are giving it to or lending it to the governments at interest that can never, ever, ever be repaid. Alright? So the debt itself, this is how you get inflation. So the debt itself is going up and up and up all the time. But they don't explain that to you. So whatever you're paying, tax-wise or anything like that, it's not going to be paying for any roads or anything like that, or hospitals or schools or anything. That's all coming out of your set of KV trust funds, which is the bonds that they create with the birth certificate. And they invest them on the stock exchange, which is where all of that money comes from to create all of the infrastructure. You paid for it all. Right? The tax just goes straight to the bondholders, which is the central banks, the Rothschild families, who don't even own it really. They're just front beings, creatures, for whoever's behind them, or whatever is behind them, I should say. Alright, so does that make sense? So all they're doing, the illusion of freedom, is they're putting you in there with your name, conning you with the name, so that you will be a person, so that when the person is can have income, which will be taxed, and it just keeps you in that loop of slavery. So let's go back to the birth certificate, the registration. So the registration itself, when you're doing it, right, and then we're going to accept that we are the actual name, the full cap name, right, which I was just talking about, and it obliges us to the national debt of the country, to the central banks, okay? So like I said, the governments, they borrow that fiat currency at interest, right, and the tax, that just pays the interest, alright? But we'll go over that in a bit after, okay, where it's all coming from. Okay then, so why do we as man or woman so easily identify with this fictional piece of paper? Instead of being a man or woman and saying, you know, I'm a man, woman, alright, we actually hang on to being that capitalised name. Alright, now you do it all the time, and sometimes you have to do it. If you want a passport, you're gonna have to be that birth certificate, you're gonna have to be that fictional name. If you want a driving license, which you never really want one, but you know, you have to get one for anything like that. So sometimes we are all going to have to pretend that we are that fictional piece of paper, full capital names. But how is it so easy right now? Like if you look in this room here, right, it's full, but there's not many. Now, most of what I've said tonight, if I went down the street and said it, or went to the pub and said it, right, it wouldn't really be accepted very well. So, you know, how is it that so many people, like, cannot understand this, that do not get this and don't believe this? When you're trying to tell people about a person or a persona, being a mask wearer, or that, you know, like there's all your taxes doesn't go to fix a road or anything like that, you know, or the Queen's a lizard. Yeah. They're just going to look at you like you're a lunatic. All right, and it's all indoctrination, okay? And it starts off like with our parents, and it's not their fault because they're getting it from their parents, all right? And from there, you know, imagine when we're going to school and you're getting the school register. So again, this is incredible witchcraft as well, because when you go to the school register and they're calling out your name, sitting like this, right? If I was a school teacher and I'm sitting looking at you and I knew your names, and I will know your name, I'm still going to have a bit of paper then, I'm going to say your name. And you have to say, yes, sir, all right? But when I've said your name, I've read it out full capitals. I've read it. Now, you didn't hear that. You can't tell the difference between a capital letter or when I speak it, right? But this is the witchcraft, all right? And it is indoctrination. You're accepting it on the school register, sometimes twice a day, every day for what? 12 years, 14 years, whatever it is. So listen, this shows you, anybody who doesn't go to school is really bright, okay? Anyone who stays away, and you know, I mean, I got out at 16, some people I knew got out at 14 and 15, but then if you look and you think, why is it these people who have got all of these qualifications are thick? Right? So you get these, like, you know, these professors that go to universities and they've got, you know, they can rattle off all of these mathematical equations and they can't tie their shoelaces. And the indoctrination has just gone on for many, many years, more than what it has for, you know, for normal people who just want to get out there and get into the real world. All right? That makes sense, so doesn't it? So the indoctrination, the longer you stay in the education system, and then what happens is when they go through college, they go through university, then they become a teacher. What chance have they got? You know, I mean, the karma must be building up on them, must be so heavy, no wonder they have to come back again. You know, and it just goes on and on. Okay? So the thing is, on the indoctrination, right, fair enough, it happens and it gets stuck on top of you on there, but we've got to remember that it can only continue if you continue to volunteer. So what I mean by volunteering is making sure, like, you know, that you don't say you're a man or a woman, by saying yes, what's your name? Or it's Peter Wilson, or is that your name? Yes, then you're volunteering. You are volunteering yourself to be that persona or that person. Okay? So, so no authority exists that says you are your birth certificate. Alright? Only your own consent will say that that is your ID. Now, I'm not talking about the fact that, you know, it says on your, I don't know if you looked at your birth certificate recently, but it says on there you can't use it for ID. Because they know that it is just a way of using you and trying to create that person. On mine, with it being an older one, it doesn't have a surname or anything like that. So you'll have, on the birth certificates, you'll have box 10 or 17, depends on which one you have. I can't remember when they changed. But the older ones have 10 boxes, the newer ones have 17. And it's on box number 10 and box number 17 is the same box. And it says name given after registration. And there's always a line through it. Okay, you have an incomplete birth certificate. So when you go back, have a look. Alright, depending on how old you are, you'll have either 17 or 10 boxes. And the last one, box 10 or 17, should have something written in, and they're always blank. Well, they're not blank actually, they have a line put through so that it can't be completed. Alright, but on the older ones, there's no surname on. On the newer ones, there's the capitalized surname. So I was trying to get proof that I was a man and alive. So I went to get my baptism certificate. Well, I didn't go to get it, it's like, you know, a long way away. So I had rang up the church and eventually got through to someone and got the baptism certificate. I was very excited, going to get it sent up. And then it come through and it had written on high and low case, alright, which can only be a man. It's like, brilliant. But they were 5 years out of date, so it had 5 year difference on the actual birth certificate, which I couldn't understand. But it was supposed to say 63 and it had 68 written on, so I think he probably couldn't see it. So I had to go and get it again and rang them again and went and paid a donation to the church so I'd get it, and they sent it back and they had the correct date on, they capitalised the whole name. Typical. But anyway, so again, going back to the birth certificate, you didn't sign it, did you? Alright, so that's what we're talking about there when people say, is that your birth certificate? How do you know? You might have been there, but there's no way in the world that you're old enough to remember it. Alright, you certainly didn't sign it. Okay, so this so-called certificate, alright, or in fact, on the register, you didn't sign any of it. So people saying that, you know, you're tied into them, you definitely have to be tied into the government because you've got the birth certificate, it's a contract. You didn't sign it. So you're not bound to anything, okay? If anything there, if they ever say, is that yours? Or, you know, this is your birth certificate, it's hearsay. It doesn't mean anything because you weren't there, right? You weren't there actually when they did the birth certificate because you'd have been well gone, but there's no way that you would have been old enough to actually know about it or definitely sign it. So it doesn't mean anything. So when people are saying, you know, you are registered so that you're finished and that you're going to be their property forever, only if you consent. Right? If you don't give consent, then you cannot be bound by your birth certificate. It is not a binding contract. Okay? So all we're going to do is we can only be fooled when we accept the titles. Because the Crown Corporation, they own all the titles. So we've got the Clowns, the courts, and even the Crown, they only have jurisdiction, right, when you give them it in exchange for the benefits and privileges. That's the means the thing. When you get a job and you're using your, what do you call it, your national insurance, isn't it? National insurance number, that's how you get your benefits and privileges. You think you're actually getting your wages, but you're not. You're getting what's left over, aren't you? I mean, you know, they take everything out before they give it to you because it's your benefits and privileges. All right? So, you know, the thing is with the jurisdiction, they can only have jurisdiction over you if you allow it and admit it. All right? very good thing that I was trying to tell people to do with their cars. You know, when you register your cars. Now, I always put mine into a trust. Now, I know I've done it before myself, and you don't drive your car, you travel, so you don't have your driving license, you don't have any insurance or tax or all of that stuff. And I'm not saying don't do it, I'm not saying do it, and everyone's going to have their own opinions, and it's not worth the argument. But sometimes, you know, I've studied and dealt with people who've been living in the private for like 20 years more than, and they still tax the cars because they're saying in their mind, well, I'm going onto a public road, how can it be private? I'm going on to, and they do tell you, which lane are you going in? Just come along here, and it's sat nav, turn it on, it was saying, bear left, go in the left lane, because they're all in shipping lanes, right? You're all in maritime law all the time, so we're actually in their jurisdiction anyway. So when you're going into the public, the way I say it as well, I don't mind not having like the license or anything like that, but if, I don't have a driving license actually, but if you hit someone in the car, then you need to be responsible for them, alright? So if you actually hit them and they can't work, then it's your responsibility to pay their wages until they can work, as a grown-up. But they might not be able to work for a long time, or maybe not forever. And I haven't got that kind of money that I can pay for them as well, so I make sure that I have the insurance that will take care of it. Okay? And I was very glad I was down in Birmingham, so I tried to steal my car and smashed it to pieces when I was insured. But anyway, so the talk about the jurisdictions, get back to it. If you register your car, you live here, register your car. If you've got a friend in Scotland, register at their address, right? Who does DVLA have jurisdiction over? Who? Which country? Which jurisdiction is DVLA? England and Wales.
It's not Scotland.
Not Scotland. Can't do anything. So the best thing to do is to put your car, right? So when you do on the DVLA, and they put like name, put trustee, title, trustee, all right, owns it. Peter Wilson Private Trust. You don't put your name on it, and then you register it up in Scotland. Got a friend? They can register their car your house. You register your car their house. If you've got a friend in Scotland. Now it's not the same for them. It's unfortunate. Just don't tell them that bit, right? But your car gets registered up in Scotland, they've got no jurisdiction on it. They can't give you a ticket. It's Scottish. Alright, you want to check that out? Okay? Alright. Let's continue. So we're talking about here, this is what, there's loads of these as well, they've got on and on and on, but the lots of bits of paper that I had all got ripped up in Birmingham as well. I'm still not sure that it wasn't done on purpose, but very strange. Alright, so you are a man or a woman, okay, you are not a person, but you do have a person. Now sometimes you can use it, like I've just said before, and sometimes you can actually use it in a beneficial manner, so you can pick and choose when to do it. So here is a man, alright, we're doing it in lowercase. This is how you have it written as the person or the legal fiction. So under here, under the reality, alright, we're a man, well I'm a man, woman, okay, under their world we're a person. So what I am, I look to the Creator, alright, whatever word you want to call it, I'm not bothered, God, Big Bob, alright, whatever, the Creator, but up there we have to look to the government. What we do is we're under the law, they're under civil rules. Everything that we do is natural. On the government side it's all fictional, so what we're doing is real, okay? So what they do is everything is on paper. They are in a 2D world. This is why they have to create the corporations, because they're a corporation. They cannot deal with a man or woman living. They can only deal with another corporation. It has to be contract law. Everything outside of us being real, okay? So in other words, if we, everything is about Everything is about stealing, really. If you think of the 10 Commandments, all right, the first one, thou shalt not steal, that's pretty obvious, right? But thou shalt not kill. Really, if you're killing someone, you're just stealing their life, you're still stealing them, right? You won't covet your neighbour's wife, still running off with his wife, stealing his wife, all right, or his donkey, or whatever. I can't remember them all. But basically, it's all about do no harm, isn't it? Okay? Anything outside of that do no harm can only be done by contract. So when we move into the civil side, and we're looking at the civil rules, then it has to be a contract. So if I have caused no harm or loss, then I must have done something again. I must have been in breach of contract. All right? But we have to look at the state of things, and what, first of all, like the civil rules. We've got the civil rules, and they're all there, civil procedure rules and everything like that. They don't pay any attention to them anyway. You've got to be so on the ball to deal with these scumbags. But that is the truth of it, and you have to be like, you know, really like I'm terrible for recording things. I keep telling everyone all the time, I've got a body cam. Something happened last week. The body cam went flying. I can't say too much that I'm getting all investigations and all of this. You know, and the same thing, and I threw the camera away because I wanted my arms to do something. And you know, it was funny really. But the thing is, with the civil rules or the civil procedure rules, everything has to be done in a certain way in a certain time. So I had these bailiffs turn up at the house, right? No warning whatsoever, no civil procedure rules followed, which they have to go through the courts. You have to be informed. You even have the right to go and put your case forward. None of that happened. These people just turned up, nearly caved the front door in, I was sitting, I was actually on a Zoom call, nearly had a heart attack, you know, which is not very good, so it made me really angry, and then they actually touched me as well, you know, big mistake. But a week later, I get a letter through saying, we are going to apply for a warrant. A week later, and I had it written a month earlier on the date, on the letter. It's so full of shit, it's just unbelievable. But the good thing is, I know what they're doing, right? So I was there, rang the court, right, show me the warrant. Wouldn't show me the warrant, right, show me the warrant. You know, hiding in the van, shut the door and everything like that, rip the door open, show me the warrant. And eventually it allowed me to take a photograph of the warrant. So I rang up the court onto there, never heard of it, never heard of me, never heard of the number or anything like this. But by then, you know, he's cringing in his car, ringing the police. So they all come like they're there, you know, booling up the driveway and everything. And there's no warrant. Right there, I rang it on speaker, there's no warrant, don't care. I said, well, this is a magistrate's court, by the way. So what does a magistrate's court deal with? I'm asking him, right? The clown in the costume. The bright one is like, that's it, that's the answer. You know, I said, well, it can only be criminal law. It has to be a criminal case if it's in a magistrate's court. That's it, that's the intelligence of it. So, well, this is a civil matter, so how can they have a criminal warrant in a civil matter? So, there is no warrant. I've actually rang them, I've asked them, it's on there. They have no record of my name, they have no record of this address. No, I said they have no record of my name with that number. He went, oh, it's the address. Asked them on the phone again about the address, no record of the address. Well, it doesn't matter. So, right, there's no name, there's no record of this number, there's no reference number, there's no record of the address, there's no record of this fictional name, and on there, it actually had on the full warrant, occupier. Right, and on the other bit he had, which is like written, a bit of paper underneath, it had, for all capitals, Peter Wilson. I was thinking, well, you know, and my name isn't on anything either, this is really strange. And then later on, the week after, right, they came back again, and they were a little bit more polite, right, and they actually had a dead person's name who'd been dead since 2019, right? So, what is going on? But anyway, so the thing is though, right, that, and the word, honestly, I only got a little bit filmed, you know, throwing things away and stuff, but Janine filmed a little bit as well. point blank refused to give any names whatsoever, wouldn't give any warrant cards whatsoever, and even the bailiffs or anything, no ID, nothing like that whatsoever. But like, I've got the number of the warrant, okay, with the photograph on it as well. So we've done a full DSOR on it. When you're doing a DSOR, data subject access request, so if this ever happens, and I don't care what it is for, be it council tax or gas, electricity or anything like that, get the warrant number, alright, make sure you get a good photograph of it, and then, because it's fake, 100% fake, if it's from a magistrate's court on a civil matter, what they do is they hire the office, right, in the building, and they'll go in, right, and they'll sit there and they'll just have a massive pile of paper and they'll just be stamp, 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 send them away, stamp, 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 stamp. There's no names on them, there's no signatures on them, there's no court references on them, nothing. This is all from either the council or E.ON or ADF or whoever it is that's hired the office. That's all they do. Okay, so they're all fraud, it's all fake. So then they try, and they don't follow any civil procedure rules, right? Civil procedure rules, there's a lot of things that they have to go through to do all the, and they don't do any of it. Okay? But the thing is, you have to put up with it sometimes. Right, so I mean, there's very little you can do. They were saying they sent a dog handler to take my dogs, all right, which wouldn't have happened. I mean, I wouldn't be here now if they'd have tried to touch me dogs. I wouldn't be here now, I guarantee you. But they sent a dog handler to take my dogs away, right? At the same time as having all of these. It was I live in this tiny little village, and there's only about 8 houses in this street. Right, it's a tiny street. There was 3 police vans, 6 police, right, and 4 bailiffs. Like, you know, oh man, it was funny after, but the thing is now, I'm just waiting. They still haven't replied, but we've got a friend of mine, Gavin. The same happened to him, and he got the DSOR through from the magistrate's court. So on the DSOR, right. So what you have to do is you have to be very, very specific. Don't use one of these online ones, right? If you've ever heard of a DSOR before. Data Subject Access Request. So you start off the same as all the other ones, that, you know, notice the principle, blah, 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 blah. Right? But be very specific. I want all of the data on this, and put the full name that they've used, right? Peter Wilson, full capitals, because that's what they used. At this address, full capitals, because that's what they used. On this warrant number, or summons number, or liability order number for the council. All fake. Right? They've never used a liability order since 2003. Do you know that? They actually scrapped them. So if you haven't paid your council tax and you get a liability order through, it's fake. They've just made it up. They're sat in the office. All of the paperwork that comes from the council, they sit in the office doing it. All the warrants that come out, all the summonses that come out, all the ones that get given to the bailiffs that come and give you hassle, all fraudulently fake, all of them. And you can prove it by getting the DSOR from the real court, right? So don't use, this is when I was there and I went, look, I've just got it from the magistrate's court. They went, well, try this number. And I looked at that number, rang them, it was E.ON. So I go, hang on, you're not going to tell me that I have to speak to the electricity company to see if they've issued a warrant. They went, well, yeah, you have to ring them. I went, so, this is talking to the clowns. Right, again, so now you're saying that E.ON, the electricity company, they can issue a warrant? You went, yeah. Well, really? You know, I said, I'm pretty sure that under the Fraud Act 2007 that it's an offence to pretend to be a court. And walk away. I mean, that's like, most of it was like, walk away, you know. Even going on, remove your implied rights of access. I have removed your implied rights of access by writing, and now I've done it verbally. You know? And I was like, excuse me? So you're trying to tell me that you're actually more qualified and higher than Lord Donaldson? Walk off, you know?
The best bit is when you let off the bailiffs in this inside operations manager. What kind of mother names that child operations manager?
Yeah, exactly.
They never get a name.
No, but well, they wouldn't give me the name. And then when they come back the second time, and I was like, that was it, with the name of somebody who's been dead since 2019. And I was like, I said, right, what's your name? and it's like, Andy, right? It's like, and he got this phone number written down, you have to ring me to like pay this. So I rang, and I went, what's your surname? So I'm not telling you my surname. I was, why? What are you scared of? So I won't tell anybody my surname. But there's the truth in it, right? That's what they're scared of. Cause I wasn't going to do anything, I want it, because I am going to chase him till I find out. I will get a private detective, and I will get his home address, and I will prosecute him. Alright, he will get taken to civil court for enforcing a fraudulent warrant. Now, I'm not going to do anything like, you know, try and like get any kind of ridiculous sums of money or anything like this. If you're ever doing anything with a debt, right, so if you get debt collectors or anything like that chasing you, go for £5,000. The judges give it very easily. Plus the 265 for filing the N1. That's what you file at M1. So which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to file an M1 against the little fat bastard that came up first. Right? Plus the clowns, and plus the Andy who came back the next day. Right? He came back the next day with this guy this big. I was thinking, well, do you think I'm bothered about that size? I'll break your leg before you come anywhere near me. But like, you know, anyway, but by's the by. So, I forgot what I was talking about now, completely. Yeah, civil procedure rules, but, so just so you know, right, we need to know how they work, and we need to know these rules and regulations, we need to know all of the acts and statutes. Are just as important as knowing the law. We need to know the acts and statutes so we know when to break them. Because they break their rules every single time they get out of the car, you know, right? They don't do anything correctly, they don't care. They think now, right, that this has been going on so long, this fraud has been going on so long, that they think that they can get away with anything. Well, like when Andy came back the next day with the dead man on the paper, right, and his friend was standing there like that, and I says, look, I says, you have to just get out of here. I says, I'm enjoying this now, right? I said, I've got all the proof I need that you're just using these fraudulent warrants. This fool standing there went, oh, we never had a signature or one for 10 years. That's probably true. So they've gone, just imagine, right, when they were getting in and driving off in the van, this was the first time that they come around with all the police. I heard them saying, oh, we've got one more to do today. Oh, dirty bastards. But so imagine how many, if they were doing, just say, it was 2, 3 a day, whatever, there, 5 days a week, right? So they say, like, you know, between 10 and 15 fake warrants a day they've been doing for 10 years. And that's just them. I mean, I get, like, you know, people telling me all the time they've got bailiffs banging on the door and trying to smash in, you know, and then the police come along and the police always take their side. Or 99.9% of the time. All right? And honestly, it's thick as 2 short planks. But that's why we need to know what the civil procedure rules are and the acts and statutes that deal with all of the bailiffs and all of anything that's got to do with the clowns when they're dealing with you. All right? Right? So, yeah?
Just quickly, after that case this year where they broke in the back door, they say,
yeah, Robert, yeah.
I thought the police couldn't, you're going to get him on your show, aren't you?
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Trying, just so I'm so busy, but yeah.
I thought the police couldn't get involved anymore.
They've never been able to get involved.
Right.
But it wasn't because of his case, right? So we've got to remember this. All right, Robert White is what he's talking about. There was a case, it actually started 2019, something like that. So it's quite an old case going on. And they had a repossession warrant to repossess his house, but like it was still in dispute with the mortgage company. But anyway, so they turned up there on this day to repossess a house. He had boarded up the door, right? So he got you couldn't. I don't know what he had, but he had the door boarded up as well. So fair enough to come up when they drill the lock. But they couldn't open the door still. So the police went around the side and smashed the side door in. Alright? So they were trying to say that he was swinging this big club at them. Pretty sure he wasn't. But what he done is he picked the panel up and he tried to put it back in. So they had pushed it out of the way and they used the taser on him. Right? Twice. Okay? Then they burst in, they punched him in the head 3 times. Alright? All of them overpowered him. arrested him and charged him with a fray. All right. So it's took a long time, and he lost his wife in all this time. You know. So that was 2019. Now this is just only a few weeks ago. I was speaking to him after. Very calm, very mellow and everything like that. But basically, he got the chance to cross-examine, is that the word? Cross-examine the police. So we had this sergeant who'd smashed his door in, and he went, "Do you think you had the right to do that?" Sergeant went, "Yeah, of course you have." So the judge went, "Show me the warrant." Showed him the warrant. Says, "So there's nowhere on there you're allowed to do that." And it says nowhere in any act and statute that you're allowed to use force to go in there. Sergeant's sitting there like, but that's it. So they're just like, you're not allowed to do that. Right? And he'd said there, as soon as any police officer acts outside their oath, as soon as they don't give the name, they're acting outside their oath. Doesn't matter what else they do. Right? Now they are nothing but an intruder. And you are allowed to defend yourself and your property any way necessary. This is what the judge said. But that doesn't make case law, because case law can only be set from High Court. You have to be a Lord Chief Justice to state on an appeal or High Court, which is the High Court, Chancery Court or above. This was not. So it doesn't set case law there, but he said that because of case law previous. So they've never been able to break into your house. Right? Even if they've got a repossession order, if they cannot get in, then they have to go away. They are not allowed to use violence to enter the house. And there's loads of cases. I did a video on it once, it was quite funny, and it said, well, I don't know why, but it said, if you hit a bailiff on the head with a full bottle of milk, I don't know why it said full bottle of milk, you cannot be done for assault. Right? Because you're defending your property. You are allowed to defend your property. If you've ever heard of the what is it called? The castle, I can't remember the name, but it's about a castle. You can use any force up to lethal to protect life, limb and property. Okay? So, yeah, whatever I was talking about. Alright, so we're going back to public and private. Obviously on the public side, okay, these are actually opposite way around. Right? I don't know why I had done that. So if it's public, we're going legal. On private, we're going lawful. Alright, if it's private, we're doing man and woman. Public, we're the person. We said that before. Okay, but we can wear the Monopoly hat and we can play the game by dipping in and out of the public and the private. Alright, we can do that. Like I say, we're driving the car, you can be going in the public. But if they stop the car and ask you to do anything that's outside of the normal remit, then you can just say, I'm a private man, and if anything else you want me to do, get out of the car, you know, anything like that, then I will be charging you for any orders that you give me that I fulfill. Okay? And they'll just think you're mad. But, you know, the thing is, what you have to do is you have to put claims in against him. We have got to stop leaving them alone and letting them off with it, okay? So I had done that recently for a man up in Scotland, and I put all of the cases, all of the charges we put against the police. The police turned up, you know, same type of thing, dragged him out of his house, arrested him. Yeah, I think he got, oh yeah, he put some rubbish in a bin. Yeah, a really violent criminal. Anyway, so, and I had put down like a claims, I've done it properly, so I was writing it as a man, I a man, blah, 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 I told him how to do it, and then he filed them all, filed the notices, notice of a wrong, or notice of, right the way up to wrong, harm, trespass. 3 different types, and once you've committed trespass, which is very serious, against a man. So they went into the court and he held his claim in his right hand, walked into the court with the claim in his right hand. He says, are you here on it? He went, my name is David, I'm a man, and I have a claim to press on this court. So they're sitting there going, what the hell is going on here? But what they did was they just closed the whole court, dropped all the charges and sent him on his way. Alright? So it scares them when you play them at their game. But now we're going to go after them, police, again, because they now think that, and they sent this, oh, thank you for the police complaint. send it to police complaints. No, it's not a complaint, this is a claim. So anyway, what we have to do is we have to report all of their presumptions, okay? So they're always going to presume and assume that we are a person, all right? So we have to be a man or a woman, okay? We only look to the Creator and we establish our law common to I, all right? This is what we've got to get the terminology into. Law common to I. I set the law, my law, right? Common law, it's not do no harm. Right? That's natural law. That's God's law. Do no harm. Common law, right? That is made through judges, and this is the language you got to be careful what you say. Okay, so this is the case law we were just talking about before. So when you go to a high court and you do an appeal or anything like that, you will be in a Chief Justice, Lord Chief Justice, and it'll go to the House of Lords sometimes as well. And whatever they actually say will create case law and the precedent. So any other case will have to follow the precedent set by that judge. Okay? That is what they see and they describe as common law. So you're digging a hole for yourself by telling these people, I'm under common law. Right? Because that is really theirs. Okay? So we just got to watch our words. So what we're talking about is when we're saying we're going to set our law, it's law common to I. I set my law. When I do my private trust is set up with my rules, my laws, my regulations. So when I do private trusts for other people, I set up their rules, their regulations. Alright, it's not a statutory trust, it's a private trust. So we'll see what happens. That means that we're not going to be having tax paid on our properties, we're not going to be having tax paid on our incomes. Because, or it's not an income, it's actually compensation for labour. So it's in the private. Law common to I. Stating our own law. Alright, so we're talking about like the words, having to watch our words. Because everything we're doing is witchcraft, or everything they're doing, it's witchcraft. So words are spells, they're putting spells on us all the time, that's why they call it spelling. Right? They even test you on it in school. Have a spelling test. It's like witches and stuff, isn't it? So look, word, just all you got to do is move the S on the words and it makes sword. Okay, so it's going to cut you. Alright? So when you get up in the morning, you say, oh, I'm awake. Well, what is awake? You only have awake at a funeral. Okay? And all the time, I hate it, I'm going out at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm taking my dogs out and I want people, they always say that. And I was like, shut up. I don't. I would say, hi, how you do? But, you know, you're saying good morning, it's telling you you're in mourning, it's for the dead, you're mourning the dead. Alright? When you're saying hello, they're coming, hello there, what are you doing? You're casting them into hell. Okay? And they say, what is your occupation? Well, you can only have an occupation if it's an enemy force. Alright? When you get invaded, the Normans came and they invaded us and we had a Norman occupation. Right? That's what they do. So when they say, oh well, I'm occupied. Well, you are occupied. You're occupied by the enemy. We are still occupied by the enemy now. Alright? So when you've been working and you've been occupied all week and you're getting your job and you're tired and you come to the weekend because you're weakened. Because you've been working all the time, you've been occupied all the time, and you're weakened by your occupation. That's why you're having the weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy being weakened. And then normally what happens is like when you're coming in and you're weakened at the end of the week, and you know, I'm nobody to tell you what to do, but like, you know, you go for a drink, alright, you have a beer or something, you have some alcohol. Well there, alcohol is spirits, it's allowing spirits into you. Or you're allowing yourself to be possessed. That's when you're weak, when you're low, all right, and you're tired, and you're weakened. So you have a drink of alcohol, and that's where does all trouble always happen? It always happens at the weekend, doesn't it? It's at the big market, isn't it? They're all full of spirits, evil spirits, and they're all weakened by their whole week of occupation, right? And then they go out and they allow the spirits to enter them. It's all witchcraft, it's all spells. Ran out of ink again. So we're going about the language. Okay? This is all etymology. Isn't that how it's etymology, etymology, whatever it is anyway. Language. Okay, break it down on there. Lang. That means noble ones. Okay, Gu is an ancient god of war. I think it's an African god of war. Gu, Lang Gu. Age is eons. Don't want to talk about eons, do they? Alright, not after the last couple of weeks. Alright, so what they're saying on the language there, alright, it's a god of war that watches over the noble ones through the ages. That's a good one, that, isn't it? But there we go. Everything that they do on the language is all hidden meanings. Everything has hidden meanings. Symbology is everything to these people. Well, they're not people, these lizards. Alright? These things. Okay? So, everything that we're doing, or all of the reason why they create the person, is to be controlled by the illusion of money. Okay? All of your occupation, so that you are weakened, so you can spend your money. But we haven't got any money. Never had any money for a long time, because he took it all away. So it's all an illusion, it's complete fake. It's all a scam. Everything on the money is a scam, right? We haven't got any money. And it's all done by the fraud by the banksters. Now this is the worst of them all. This is terrible. I've just started about halfway through this book. Two new books. I can't help myself. I think I'm terrible. I've got terrible ADHD. And I start doing something, I'm reading this book and I think that's a good book, so I'm going to start reading this one. I'll go back over to this one. You know, but mind spins and spins, and no wonder I'm so tired all the time. But anyway, I'll have to get the name of this book, the information in it. It's horrible, right? But brilliant. And it just, the fraud, and the other one that I'm reading, again, I haven't got the name of that one. Oh, and yeah, the second book is called Fruit of a Poisonous Tree, or something like that. Something like that. And it's by a lawyer, or something like a lawyer in America. And he says on his book there, I shouldn't be doing this because I've got a good life and everything like that, and now I'm going to get hammered, basically. But he was so disgusted at the fraud of the banksters and the money and how they create the money and how they control you through this fraudulent system that he had to write this book. Now a lot of this one, everything that happens in America is because it started in the City of London. So whatever goes over to there, it started in the City of London. And the Crown Corporation have been, and the cabal, whatever you want to call it, have been chasing the United States of America ever since they tried to run away. Because that's what they try to do. They try to get away from the cabal. That's what they went there for. And they weren't having it. So anyway, right, the central banks, we'll know now, right, they're all private family-owned corporations. Like, so the Bank of England, all right, it's not English, okay, the Federal Reserve, or the Reserve Bank of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, they're all the same, they're all called the Reserve Bank of, all right, so like the Reserve, the Federal Reserve. So these are all private, for-profit banks. Obviously, it is just one huge bank. Now these are the ones that create this fiat currency, and then they lend the governments the fiat currency at interest, okay, and then we have to be paying it back. And this debt, we are the collateral. We're the collateral of the debt. So they're using our bodies as the collateral against this debt that they keep building and building and building. They simply can never go away. All right, it's the giant Ponzi scheme, and it's going to collapse, like soon. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know what's going to happen, right? But you know, I certainly don't feel comfortable about it. That's for sure. So, in England, in the Commonwealth, right, we had the Bills of Exchange Act 1882. In the United States, they had the Federal Reserve Act 1913. Okay. But at the same time in 1913, England stopped trading gold, and they blamed World War One. What they said was, like, you know, we don't think that we should be trading English gold around the country because it could get into the hands of our enemy. That's what they were saying at World War One. So all of this time there, you've got to think, the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, right, they sank the Titanic so they could help get this through. Okay, they needed rid of people so they could get that through. Woodrow Wilson helped get this all sorted. Now, I was going to write this this whole speech out that was done by Edward Mandell House. Used to call himself Colonel, but we haven't got any proof that he was ever a colonel of anything, hasn't been in the forces. But he basically was the handler of Woodrow Wilson when they were setting this scheme up. And it was all about the birth certificate and the national insurance, or they call it Social Security, right? Which is another bond. You know, when you make the bond of your birth certificate, you also make the bond of your national insurance number or your Social Security number. If you get married, all right, you've asked for permission to get married, haven't you? You've actually been licensed to get married. Do you not think that's insane? You ask permission to be with somebody you love, all right? But then they get a number on your marriage certificate and they create a bond. They sell it on your stock exchange. You get put in prison, you get a prison number, they sell it on the stock exchange. You die, you get a death certificate number, they sell it on the stock exchange. They even make money out of you dead. Okay? So this is when they're actually getting rid of the actual money and replacing it with fiat currency. This is what this is about. The Bills of Exchange Act 1882, the Federal Reserve Act 1913. It wasn't even passed properly. This was passed like, you know, Christmas Day or something stupid like that. There wasn't even anybody there. But in 1913, right, as I said, England stopped trading the gold, and they said no one was allowed to have gold. In 1931, England suspended the gold standard. That means whether, like literally, like a pound note or pound coin, whatever it was, it would have been coins, was linked to gold. All right, 1933, the US suspended gold standard. And they actually said it was illegal for anyone to hold any gold unless it was jewellery. And they used to go around the houses and search and take the gold in America. At the same time as what else were they doing in America? The 30s?
Prohibition.
And the Great Depression. Okay? The Prohibition, right? We're talking about being private before. In Prohibition, it was only anyone who was, like, you know, normal, if you want to put it like the run-of-the-mill people that were affected by Prohibition, right? Anybody that had anything were in private members' associations. Private members' association was a drinking club, right? They could drink, as long as you only did it in the club. Still got them now. Right, so when you go down to London, you got all, like, you know, Doris and all his pals, and they go into these men-only clubs. How is that not discrimination? Because it's private. If it's private, it can't be affected by acts and statutes because it's private. It means it's their law. Private, right? Common or law common to I. Private trusts. You set up your own law, just the same as they set up their own law when they have their private clubs. Their private memberships, their private associations. They just don't tell us.
But they can't sell alcohol.
Of course they can.
But they don't have a license.
Who says you need a license?
The local council.
But that's an act and statute.
They're all
But
corporations.
It's an act and statute.
Yeah, but they've got the power of force.
No one's got the power.
Well, they did at the Porcupine.
But it's not a private members association. Have you got your articles of association and your founding document? And have you got your private contracts between each member?
But then we're open to the public. We need to be.
You can't be open to the public.
We can't be.
No. But you can invite them in and say, do you want to be a member?
Yeah.
Alright? You see, like in France, what they were doing in France when they were like shutting down all the restaurants, they turned them all into private members associations. So when they were saying you can't have anyone in there through COVID, they went, we're not having anyone in, it's private. But you can come and become a member. It's only £1 a year, €1 a year.
So I mean, but then you can't get like passing trade, can you? You're not.
No.
You can't.
But you can shout out your window, do you want to be a member? No, you can't. You can't be open to the public.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these women barristers, you know, the women barristers, they try to like shut down these men-only clubs because they were doing functions where they had hired the room. And we saying that's a business, but it wasn't open to the public. It was you had to be a private member to hire the room, and no one else was allowed in unless they were private members. So they didn't get shut down or affected in any way. But the women, they were just because it was men-only barristers that were out in, you know. So they're just trying to test it. But it's private. If it's private, it doesn't come under Acts and Statutes. It's private. They do it all the time. They just don't tell you how to do it. You know?
Well, you're going to tell me how to do it.
Yeah, what you need is a founding document, and you need your articles of private association, and then you need to set up your indentures, which is a contract that you have between you and every private member. And everything is a private contract, member to member. And then you can trade. You can trade member to member. Yeah? So, and it can work very well because then you don't have any taxes paid between each other or anything like that. Which is how in America that they started to sell the raw milk. Right? You know, like, I've never touched milk no matter raw or whatever for nearly 30 years, but I've seen the programs and they were like, if you don't, what is it called, pasteurise, is that right?
Yes.
You don't pasteurize it, you're not allowed to sell it, you know, and they were trying to sell it to friends and family. They were like getting like chased with these men with bloody machine guns and that and tipping the milk out. This is insane, right? So they set up private members associations, and then they can sell between each other privately because it's got nothing to do with their acts in America. So you just gotta. You can do it. It's not easy, but the only way that they can challenge you is by eventually taking it to court. And as long as you have your founding document and your articles of private association and your indentures and your private member-to-member private contracts. All right, it's a lot of work, but you know, even in the 60s and that, you know, when you used to see these there's still dry, what do you call them, states in America, right? And not allowed to drink alcohol. Unless you're in a private members association, and then you can drink alcohol if you're in the club. Right. Anyway, where I'm up to. Oh yeah, right, so 1971, okay, England and the USA, they completely abandoned the gold standard. Right, in there, if we look at it, right, I can remember in 1971 we changed, all right, from pounds, shillings and pence to like decimalisation, didn't we? Yeah. Because they got rid of the gold standard. They changed it all at the same time. It's not a coincidence. So here is when everything went to complete valueless promissory notes. All right, so whatever you've got in your wallet, your purse or anything, right, it's always been a promissory note, but then after 1971 it's had literally zero value. It was never tied to anything. They've been abandoning it since the 1913, but this is when it was finished and completely gone. All right, so it's a fiat currency. That's all we have. And if you look at Black's Law Dictionary, I think there's 11 editions. I think it's the 8th edition. It said fiat means fake. That's what it means. That's in the Law Dictionary. You know. So it's a complete and utterly fake, and it's not. This isn't the only fiat currency there's ever been. There has been a lot of different fiat currencies over history, and all of them have returned to their true value, which is zero. All right, and you can see this is inflation. Inflation can only happen with fiat currency. So when the going thing, like they call it a crisis this and a crisis that, it's all about war, right? Because that's how they make their money, and it's also how they cash in on the set of KV trusts. Once you get a few years, and I want all them million people dead, so we can keep all the trust fund. Alright? So this last couple of years, instead of like doing too big a war, they just injected everybody. Alright? Got rid of millions. So See, gold, when you talk about gold, it carries no interest. You can't put an interest on gold. What they do is they put interest on the fiat currency. So when, like, Ricky Sunak, or whatever his name is, comes out and he goes, oh, we're just going to, like, you know, get £1 billion this and £1 billion that. They're getting it from the Bank of England, which is the Rothschilds. So they can only borrow it from them with interest. Right? You can't put interest on gold. Okay? So if you have any spare cash, I would buy silver, right? Because silver's going to leap up more than gold, right? But get into precious metals if you've got anything any little spare cash, okay? That's what I would be doing. All right. So the thing is, the central banks, they can't put usury onto gold, okay? That's what interest is. Usury means money for nothing, money for doing nothing. So right. So the central banks, they issue the fiat to the governments at interest, at usury. And we are the collateral to the central bank. So I said that before. So we pay the interest through the taxes. So our tax goes to pay for the interest, but it never pays the principal. So it's always going to go up. The debt will always go up and up and up. It's just a massive Ponzi scheme. So eventually it has to collapse. All right? Which is really what we are literally in right now, and everything is happening right now, and probably going to come to a head, which I think will be good though, you know. So this is what they've created through the fiat currency. The only way they could do it was get rid of the gold standard and launching their fiat currency so they could do the fractional reserve banking. Okay, so the banksters, they do not lend any money to you. I don't care if you've had loans in there, you've had a mortgage, they haven't lent you a penny. Right? You are the source of all credit. Okay? Right? So what happens is, right, when you go in there and you think you're going to sign a loan agreement or a mortgage agreement, you're actually signing what we call a financial instrument. Right? A promissory note, really. So, I was helping this lady with recently with her mortgage, and we're going through the fine print of the mortgage agreement. And what it said on there, right, these two words here, financial instrument, she didn't understand what that meant at all. And it said, by signing this agreement, you give us consent for now and evermore to securitize this financial instrument. So once you've signed it, you've got consent forever. They don't have to ask you again. And she said, well, I don't know what that means, financial instrument. Who would know what that meant? So you've signed it, you think you want to buy a house, and the next thing you've got a financial instrument, thinking, I have to play the guitar now, right? This is a financial instrument that they are going to sell. They are going to securitize it. But even when you look at it, they said, we will securitize this. But what does that mean? So even if you do read the small print, you're still not going to know what securitizing a financial instrument means. That sounds like it's Russian or something. So what it means is they're going to sell it on the securities exchange. Okay? So they sell it on the security exchange. Right? Now what they do is, you go in and sign it, they take the financial instrument, which is a promissory note, they sell it on the securities exchange, and then they put it back in your bank. So it looks like you borrowed money. You're looking there and you've got, I've got nothing in. Oh look, there's £1. Cool. Next thing, there's like £1,000 plus £1. Okay? So it looks as if you've borrowed money, but you just created it. You created it. You wrote that your sign of nature on the financial instrument. They've sold it on the securities exchange, and then they've put the balance in your bank account, and now they want you to repay with interest. All right? So how can you redo something? You can only redo something if you've already done it. So they're asking you to pay it again, repay it. It's paid off immediately. And then they don't just do it once, they keep securitizing that. They can pass that on as many times as they want. And then whoever buys it can then pass it on to somebody else. They become what's called the holder in due course. Have a look at any mortgage or loans or anything like that. Ask, if you've got a loan, ask the bank, can I have my original contract back, please? See if you can find it. See if you can get it. They can't because it's been sold. Someone will have it because it is a valuable financial instrument. And what they will be is they will have different stamps on it every time it gets passed on, because they will be the holder in due course. And then once they've used it, they will sell it again. So you can never get it back. This is how you can prove that you never borrow any money. This is how you can prove the fraud. That first book I was reading, not the one about the poisonous tree or whatever, the other one, I can't remember if it even had a name, but trying to think of his name, can't remember his name, might have been Thomas, his first name anyway. I'll find out what it is, I'll tell you what it is, pass it out. It's just an e-book. When I say just an e-book, it's like the one about the poisonous tree I got off Amazon, that's a proper book, the other one's an e-book. The information is ridiculously good, but they've got loads of people that used it to close down the mortgages. Who successfully closed down the mortgage and kept the house. Alright? Brilliant, brilliant information. So, a loan or mortgage, right? You put in your sign of nature onto that agreement, and that creates the value. Okay? Right? But then you're tricked into allowing them to put a charge on your home, right, with the land registry. You know that, don't you? So you've got a charge on the land registry. Everybody says, oh, the bank owned my house. They don't own the house. Imagine there's your house, okay? It's called first in line, right? So if you've got your house there, imagine this line here. This is the land registry. What they'll do is they'll put a charge on your house. That's the mortgage company. So they're first in line. So literally, you sell your house, your home, they're going to get paid there before you see anything. Alright? So they don't own the home, but they do have this charge on. So if you can get the information, I'm going to show you some questions. If you can get the information to challenge them, and have it proved, then, and these people on this book, the first book that Thomas did, they've closed the whole mortgage company down, and then you challenge the land registry and you can get them to take the charge off. Okay? Once you get the charge off gone, that's yours. Now remember this though, the thing, and this should be in a private trust. Mortgage or not, it should be in a private trust. Because if you look, and even if you've got no mortgage on, and you've got no debts on it whatsoever, you still don't own it. Alright? If you look at the land registry, you are a tenant. You're either a tenant in common or a joint tenant. Have a look at your land registry. Because the Crown Corporation have it in a trust already. But you can put that in a private trust. And if you put and when you put it in a private trust, you have to change the land registry on there. So you'll have, like, say for instance, your name on, say, or your husband or wife's name on, and you'll be tenants in common or joint tenants on the actual land registry. You should get your names off there, and it should be, if it was me, right, let's say Peter Wilson Private Trust, that's who owns the property. Alright? And it says on there, names of the trustee. That's all it says, trustee. Who owns it? Trustee of that trust. So your name's not on it. So they can never take anything from you. You know the biggest money the council make nowadays? Repossessions. They make more money out of repossessing than they do out of any council tax. They don't want you to pay the council tax because they want you to take you to court. They're going to bankrupt you. Alright? And if they bankrupt you, if you don't know how to stop it and how to fight them, right, and it happens every single day of the week, they take the houses and they sell them for next to nothing. And we've got proof in America that the judiciary know who's getting repossessed, and their family are first in there to get that property.
Can I just ask Peter then, how are they doing this then now that we know that the warrants are obviously the council tax?
Not everyone knows though. Not everyone knows though.
And the liability orders have gone since.
Very few
so
people do know.
how are they doing it?
But very few people do know that it's not valid. So what happens is when the council send in the bailiffs, right, and then we've got the liability order, and eventually they've sent them through and put you through to a court to take you, and that's what they do. Really go to the civil court.
Your consent, and basically you're just consenting.
Well, you're all exactly, but you're always going to agree with it, so you end up going to court, and you go to the real county court, right, and they bankrupt you.
So
and
you
you
go
take
to
the
the
house.
county court, so they do it in the right jurisdiction
Eventually.
would they?
Mhm.
Got ya, yeah.
So they keep pushing, and obviously you keep agreeing, so you're actually giving consent to, I am the name,
Half of the,
and they're repossessing houses all the time, and they're selling them all. This is massive business for them.
And they're doing that for council tax, are they?
Council tax.
Wow.
Yeah. Gavin, I don't know like who, you know, if anyone's seen me on my channel, and I did the interview with Gavin, his friend's mother had a breakdown over, like, you know, locked up for 2 years, like all this nonsense, couldn't get the job, you know, and she just had a breakdown, you know, couldn't cope or anything, so she forgot to pay, you know, forgot everything, forgetting to eat, forgetting everything. Now they were about a month away from taking a house when the son found out. And luckily, you know, he knew Gavin, right? And Gavin had like done some research and knew about, because they were trying to take his house. So he knew that there was no liability order. They took it away in 2003. Knew that it was like completely fake because it was coming from a magistrate's court. It can't. That's a criminal court. And they stopped it. Saved the house. But if you don't know,
people not knowing anything, then aren't they? Yeah.
if you don't, and how many, look at, like say here, how many people live in this area? So not many people know on a percentage basis, you know. So anyone that gets into trouble, and there's a lot of people getting, you know, they stopped a lot of people earning money for 2 years. How the hell more people aren't like not being able to pay is a miracle. But they don't want you to pay so that they can take the houses, you know. It's disgusting. Lost me train of thought again. Where am I now? Alright, okay.
Just 15 minutes left, Peter.
Right, no worries, I'll drag on. Alright. Okay, so it's a negotiable financial instrument. We're talking about getting, signing that. So this is a trust agreement. This is a trust. Everything in our lives is all trusts. Right, so what happens is we sign it and we are the settler. Settler means the creator of it. We created the trust by our sign of nature. So what they do, right, we've got this financial instrument now. It's a trust asset. It's worth money. It's worth whatever it was you bought the house for, 200,000, the mortgage anyway for 200,000. That trust asset is worth 200,000. So they securitize it on the securities exchange. So what they do after the bank securitize it, the funds get deposited to you, right? Then you pay the principal and the interest, okay? So right, so you need to challenge that fraud. Woo! All right. So what we're going to do is we write out what's called a DSOR, the Data Subject Access Request. It always starts off, if you ever do one of these, on the left-hand side you put them, on the right-hand side is you. You are on the right-hand side, that's your power side. So whenever I'm writing to anybody, I find out who the CEO is. I write to the CEO, right? Not Agnes in the office, okay? And I write, if it's Fred, I'm writing to Fred Smith, the man, who sometimes acts as Fred Smith, the director. When I write Fred Smith, the man, it's in lowercase. Fred Smith, the director, is in uppercase, okay? I'm holding him personally liable as a man. Alright, we serve a notice that we conditionally accept the alleged debt. However, we require the following items. The original mortgage contract signed by both parties, including all negotiated terms and conditions, pursuant to Section 2 of the Law of Property Act 1989. That means miscellaneous provisions. They won't have it because I've sold it. Alright, you can take photographs of this. Alright. But actually I'll put it in a document as well, and I'll give you the document. This, right, you can find this as well actually, or similar to this. This is from Thomas in that book that I was reading. But also, Michael's got similar as well, very similar. Not as, maybe he might have more or less, I'm not really sure. But it's kind of similar as well, okay? Number 2, all bookkeeping entries associated with this alleged loan. Number 3, the original mortgage deed tied to the alleged loan pursuant to Section 1 of the Law of Property Act 1989. Again, they won't have it. Number 4, the insurance policy tied to the promissory note for the alleged loan. It is a promissory note, you signed it. Right, the deposit slip tied to the promissory note for the alleged loan, because you deposited it into their bank. The authorisation for the withdrawal of the promissory note, because you deposited it, they withdrew it, but they didn't tell you. Okay, then they sold it and then they actually put it into your account, part of the profits. The account number from where the funds were withdrawn before deposited to our account. You want to know where these funds come from. They can't tell you because you put them in there. Alright? Verification that according to your bookkeeping entries, that we are the depositor of the promissory note, therefore the creditor to the principal amount. Which is what you are. Alright? Does that make sense, that? That's a big sentence. What you're saying is, like, tell us then, right, because on your bookkeeping, we know that we put that in there, so we are the creditor of the principal amount. We actually put it in. Alright, has full disclosure been provided by you of the bookkeeping entries which would show that we provide the actual funding of the alleged loan? Because we did. Or you did, if you've done it, if you've signed it, you provided it. Okay, name and address of the current holder in due course. Because it'll be sold on. So you want to know who it is. They'll never give you it. Okay, name and address of your chartered accountant for the period covering that alleged loan. Okay. Alright. Is it not now evident that you have violated GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, thus making the agreement or contract null and void? And then you put those questions in like a DSOR format, okay? That's the data subject access request, or specific data subject access request. Now, by GDPR regulations 2018, they have, and DPA 2018-2020, they have to answer them questions in full disclosure, all right? With transparency, in fairness, in equity, which means that they must be fair. But they can never answer them because then they would be admitting fraud. So those questions there, what that guy Thomas Schaff, something like that, he said they keep changing the rules and regulations and the laws all the time. So they had to keep changing the questions a little bit as well, because they were trying to hide behind everything. So as soon as somebody went up there and they actually got a win in the court, closed the mortgage down, alright, the next time they changed the way that the banks would fight. Alright, a lot of times just like make sure you don't answer anything and stay away from everybody. Literally. So, you know, they do make it incredibly hard. So what they said was, what this Thomas Schaff thing it said was, the more people that know about this, then the more people that are going to stand up angry. That is the only way that you can really beat them. Because if you just win your mortgage case, your friend goes along and uses the same questions, and they just say, and don't win. And they have found it, whereas like literally, they've had like 20 people from the same town go and challenge it, the first 5 win, the rest lose. On the same thing. Because they change the regulations just slightly so they can hide behind everything. Okay? So in reality, what we need to do is to try and get as many people aware of the fraud as possible, which is then more and more people get angry. All right? I mean, what he said was that we can all vote them out. I don't think voting counts for anything. But the more people that we kind of get to know about this, to get angry about this, to stand up about this, then the more that we can make an effect of something. Even raise up the vibration. Okay, the knowledge and the vibration needs to be risen. So that is how we can actually start making a difference and to beat them.
Did you all enjoy that?
Yes.
You're all informed now.
Thanks, Peter. I don't know how you did it. We didn't even have a break.
No worries, no worries.
There's different colour tickets. This one. On the brown.
436.
436 on the brown.